Go ahead with the board.
Have myself, chairman, and Mr. Chambers meet with financial manager. Was the motion, what you're saying?
Yeah.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Renfro. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Next on the agenda is director's comments. First, I'd like to turn my portion over to Mr. Rosenoff, our advisor. And he has a couple of things to discuss and kind of give you a heads up of what we're doing in the next few months.
The first one is working with Chris as far as the zoning map. It's been digitized. It's probably been digitized for a while. There is a process of adopting a zoning map, whether it's digitized or the old way of doing it was on that film called Mylar, which we have still in our office. Easier for reproducing. But the process of adopting the digitized zoning map, once it's prepared and formatted, basically in paper format, is bringing it before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission would review it. If they find in favor of it, then they would recommend it to the full county commission, and then the full county commission would go through the adoption process. I believe it's just one reading. Very similar to zoning text amendment, and similar to rezoning. Goes through the same process. The county commission can't adopt it unless the planning commission has had time to review it, make their recommendation. So the importance of that is at the time of adoption, you just want to make sure that the product itself is accurate, it's good. So in this process, in the next few months, we'll make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and make sure that the map is in good shape. Come to the Planning Commission for final action to the county. That's number one. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take any. But that's the process. Number two is going through the process of reviewing the major thoroughfare plan with Chris. One of the big ones is basically consulting with Elizabeth and Planning, because they did a land use and transportation plan, I think it was about a year and a half ago or so. And so typically with a city, they have a planning region, which is where they have subdivision regulation control outside their city limits up to a certain area. And typically their road plan would have what they would consider roads outside of their city limits as classified, whether it be residential, collector, or arterial. So we'll get with John on that, the director of planning. And then the other part is that Carter County is within the RPO, which is Rural Planning Organization. It's transportation oriented through the state. And also there's an MPO, which is just the larger urbanized area. And we'll make sure to see what they've classified their roads. Usually MPOs and RPOs, you have urban classification or rural classification. And basically it goes from federal classifications to state and then down to the local. So we just want to make sure that, if it's road X and it's on Carter County map and it's on Elizabeth and Transportation Plan map and it's on RPO map and it's on MPO map, we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on what it's classified as. Because a lot of times, especially at the state level, funding depends on what that road is classified as. So we wouldn't want to call it collector if the state and the feds recognize it as arterial. We probably want to look at the road classification. So that's a process as well. And also, Chris and I will work on, typically it's just your map is your major thoroughfare plan, and we'll work on maybe also working with the road superintendent on the road list, and possibly add some information to it as we go through the process.
Yeah, I think a Word document and road list is probably the major thing to deal with there. We've been working pretty close with the highway department. I'm trying to make all their meetings with the highway committee. It would kind of break down and assist you guys to know actually what your physical right of ways that you have there, which would be a very easy to work on. And I think it would assist surveyors along with, title companies, anybody of that nature. And then we can actually go in and maybe put some updates on what we had last month, how we community. So I look forward to doing that. The digitized maps, we're basically digitized now, and we're digital, running those off the computer. That's not a real big deal. The printing out, I don't need, probably for the expenditure of that amount of money. We do it in-house, but it's still quite expensive, the type of papers you need to use and the time involved in print out on that. Prior to doing that, if y'all want to progress into that situation, I think Glenn's basically giving his point of view that it's a good idea to have that. And also you need to break it down to where there's actually one disk, it's a secure area, the way I understand it.
Right, the law changed maybe about 3 years ago, and it ties in your zoning ordinance and your zoning maps as being what I consider official. So, if I have a zoning ordinance and I give it to someone in the public, I need to be careful if it's not the official zoning ordinance. And going on the World Wide Web, you pull up a county and someone posted their PDF on the internet and it's 2003, but really today it was updated to 2010. Well, 2010 is the official ordinance. The old one is not. So working on the digital, it's even more important to be more restrictive with it, to make sure when it's being released to the public that it's the official map. And we'll work with Chris as well. If it ever went to the website in the future, then there are ways that a webmaster can go in and have a disclaimer on it. To always consult the zoning administrator's office for the official map. But for illustration and for examples, you can go to the website possibly in the future, and you'd have someone that actually clicks that they understand that this isn't the official map. You still have to get it from Chris's office. Because if you can imagine, let's say a rezoning happened at the county commission today, and it passes that night. Now the actual zoning maps are going to be updated, probably not until the next day, or maybe Chris is out of the office and it's done at 3 in the afternoon. Well, if I go on that morning and I'm looking at the zoning map of Carter County on the internet, it's actually out of date. And that's why you put disclaimers and specific wording on that. So it is very important. The same thing would go for a zoning ordinance, that you basically agree that you understand that this is not the official one on the internet.
That's one good thing about the software that we utilize. There's only one security system, and that's the one that's in my office, my physical office, that you can go in and do any map changes or anything of that nature. It's the master IT guy over here. It's the master brain to that one program, which is set in that one serial number. So it really makes it good. No one can mess with it. And plus with BIS, which we utilize, it's safe. Everything's safe. Open the bunker in Bristol. Plus we'll be able to install an actual disk and all of that information can be viewed by several different computers, but as far as being manipulated.
It'll be read-only, you can't alter it.
I know how to do it, I just don't know the technology.
Yeah, that's all right.
Any other questions for William? Okay, we'll go back into my comment. We had our stormwater 2 or MS4 inspection from the state. There were several different items that they'd like to see us utilize since October of last year. Looking at our stream buffers, we had a 30-foot on all streams in our ordinance. Actually want us to go in our impaired streams, which is only 5 here in the county, impair to a 60-foot buffer, which we'll have to change the ordinance for that. And I'll be working with that before next month. Also a biggie, which I think myself and Mr. Bowers need to sit down, Mr. Bowers, our attorney, needs to sit down and talk about. It was the state is mandating from a $50 Training, we need to do some training. Actually, that's where Tony and Jimmy are today. They're doing their level 2 stormwater permitting in Knoxville today and tomorrow. So hopefully they'll pass. They made it down there safely and they're in their class. Also, we have to work with the landfill operator and our local highway department operators to give them a little brief up on discharge and things of this nature, and also work with our EMA to give him more enlightenment on what's happening as far as stormwater and clean water. Another thing was hot spots that just was developed in the last few months. The state of Tennessee wants anything that has potential to get to the river, and they call it a hot spot. Especially like a restaurant or something of that nature that's along a stream that maybe it's just a little branch or something of that nature that goes on out into the Doe or to Stony Creek or one of our major waterways. We have to pull that as a hot spot. We have to monitor those. It's another portion of the unfunded mandate, and we're working diligently to make that happen. So that's basically on our MS4. Next is the budgets as was requested. Myself and Ms. Deloach worked on this the other day. Did surveys with assistance of Mr. Rosenoff. What we did was we looked at the director in Washington, in Sullivan County, similar jobs in green, some similar jobs with all surrounding counties. We didn't go across North Carolina line, so it's a huge increase as far as that goes. So what Ingrid suggested is financial managers to go ahead and take a means between all of the individuals and look how it was broke down. Sullivan County's broke down 31 cents per person. Washington County's at 61%. But now in Sullivan County, 31 cents per person is just for the planning portion. It's not building officials, stormwater, anything of that nature. It's just one figurehead there. When you break it down, it's even it's closer to about 72 cents per person population. Green broke down to 46 cents when you add those up. That brings us over to the page we just handed out. Line item 105, which is the top. You look what was approved in 2011, 2012. That's what the adjusted would be according to the facts that myself and Ms. Deloach received. 221, and it breaks it all the way down, increase, decrease. So if you have any questions. Our biggest increase would be placing the 2 individuals full-time on building inspections and codes enforcement. Codes enforcement's become large. It's large. Time and labor intensive. I think our county attorney can agree with that. Just trying to deal with these individuals. They expect whatever they call for that individual to be there. Being a part-time individual, it's not always guaranteed. And it's the same way down patrol, you can never guarantee we'll be there at that time due to the fact that it's a part-time individual.
How much would it cost to keep these guys at full time? Is that on here?
Yes, it is. It's on line item 189 is the base pay.
So that's what it would cost to keep these these guys to full-time, right? $37,895.
Plus you have the addition of, well, what we did, we broke it all the way down, just like we do when we go into a budget committee meeting. We broke it down for state retirement, which full-time employees will receive and be part of that benefit. Social Security, life insurance, which we have to maintain and carry. Medical insurance, that's the big. And we went ahead and took the increase of more than likely will be there this next fiscal year. And added it with that so we wouldn't have any shockers come up.
This 83,000 increase, so is that covered with the county commission? Are you asking the county commission to?
That's from the motion that was brought before us to do the research. This is what we came up with. Our original budget was just plus $100. That's without any pay raises or increases. And the problem you have individuals that we're training, and I know the sheriff's department, you know, they talk about training individuals, and these guys get down and get trained, and the next thing you know, they're leaving, they're going to Johnson City, Kingsport, wherever to receive more monies. Well, a building official, building inspector, someone with stormwater criteria that we spent a lot of money on training, it's really easy for them to get snagged up and go. So that's the reason the motion was made last month.
So this past year, you received $270,000, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're asking for an additional $83,000 for this stuff.
That is, yes, sir. By the motion that was made last month, the planning commission. Now, there's one, 599-47, that $33,600, that's a base money that sits in our budget every year. And what that does is it's a revolving money. We send money into the state for electrical permits that we write. The money's reimbursed to the general fund, but it usually takes, I think, Linda says 25 to 45 days to make that rotation back. So we always maintain that $36,600 there.
Has this been presented to the budget committee?
No, sir, it comes before you guys first. Yes, sir. So was our.
I'll make a motion to pass it.
That would be to send it to the finance committee.
Gives the budget committee.
Budget.
I really don't know if you need a motion to present your budget to the budget committee or not. You should do that during the workshop, but the chairman wants to entertain a motion to do that.
Steve, you're on the budget committee, aren't you, Steve?
I am, Mr. Ballard.
You're going to.
So you should